children who talk about their past lives. It is what I'm bringing to you in this video. I used to write about mysteries, NGEs, ghosts, everything paranormal for many years, and I find this topic really fascinating. And the story I'm telling you now happened to my own son. I never really expected to see that coming. And we were on a family trip to Tunisia and found out about El Jam, this big coliseum, considered the second largest, best preserved one after the one in Rome. So there we go. We arrive in this place in the middle of a desert, and as we get there, at the entrance there was a staircase, but in a stone staircase, natural staircase, part of the complex, and it had a handrail, a metal handrail on the left, so people could climb, feeling safer. And as my son arrived at the bottom of the staircase, he became someone else. He was emotionally touched. He became overwhelmed with a lot of different feelings that he was trying to process, and we all allowed it to come out of him. And he began by saying, what happened to this place? This was never here before. And the walls, he was touching the walls, and there were holes, of course, because of the passing of time. And he was like, what is this? What have they done here? And we climbed the stairs after him. He led the way up the stairs. And as you arrive at the top, you are able to see the Colosseum at the bottom. And in the far distance, you see some kind of a shanty town. And he was horrified by the town. He said there was nothing here. That town there was not here before. Why did they allow that to be built there? And my daughter, who was about 5 years, who is 5 years older than him, she began, she was curious and she wanted to know more, and she started asking questions. And she said, well, what is it? What happened? What is happening to you? And he said, well, I used to be a gladiator here. And we all looked at each other and said, well, oh, gladiator. And he began giving us a lesson on what a gladiator was. And my notion of gladiator came from the movies, or what we see in the cinemas anyway. So I thought, well, but that was very dangerous. They would get killed very quickly. So that was not a nice thing, a nice thing to be. And he became so upset with me, so upset. He told me that I knew nothing, that to be a gladiator was a big status quo, and he was in charge of securing. He said, I was an entertainer. That was a show. And when I was not fighting, I was guarding the Coliseum. I was a soldier. And he stood in a place, in a certain place, in a position. He said, "Here." I used to stand here as they opened the gates and people would flood in. I would be standing here. And I mean, his father just sat down and was saying nothing. I decided not to speak because I knew nothing about being a gladiator. And my daughter is the one who was leading the whole conversation. So he began, and then he was sobbing. He was sobbing and he became red and he was so sad. He said that was his best life ever. He was so proud of that life. And usually, when the stories that I've worked with, when somebody's triggered into a past life, is usually a very traumatic one where they were killed. There was something really horrible that happened to them. And in this case, I was witnessing for the first time a past life story that was joyful, in the sense it was a great memory. And the sad part for him is that the place had been destroyed. And it was so interesting. So anyway, we sat there for a good 10 minutes for him to calm down, breathe, and then we did the tour. He explained in detail a lot of things that was going on there in those days. And we left. We came back to England, and he went back to school, and we forgot about it. So 3 months later, funny enough, he began studying the Romans in school. He was on year 3, and he was acing. He knew everything about the Romans. So one day the school decided to call a gladiator to entertain the children and teach them in a more nicer way about the Romans. So this entertainer came, and he was going to choose 3 children to get dressed up and play being gladiators. So there were 90 students. And my son, of course, obviously, was one of the 3 children who were picked. I did not know that this was happening. When I get there to collect him, to take him home, the teacher comes to me and tell me everything that I just told you, that he aced in the Roman studies, and that he was a natural gladiator. Well, I heard those words, and he was a natural gladiator. I was kind of laughing, inside. I couldn't laugh in front of him because he would get upset. And so again, and I forgot to say that he began so obsessed with the Romans and this story of gladiators being one. He found a gladiator school in Rome, and he tried to convince me to allow him to go there and study there at 7. So I said, no, this is not happening. Okay, the story stopped. He never spoke about it anymore. It seemed like he he's forgotten. And actually, he was upset every time that I would ask something about it. He just decided that that never happened, and he didn't want to talk about it anymore. And then he forgot. We all forgot. 5 years later, he was selected to become to do a role in Goodnight Mr. Tom in the West End in London. So he was again he was a child actor for a long time. And when he was selected to this play, at the end of the season, they gave us everything that belonged to him. And I was looking at everything, this little box, the things that were in the box. I found a picture. And this picture that I found, it was him by himself on stage with his arms opened to the audience. And I thought for a little moment, I thought, I've seen this picture before. And yes, it was the picture I took of him standing in the Coliseum in the same position with his arms opened. And I remember the sentence he said, Mother, I was an entertainer. And I was shocked because he really was an entertainer. They won it's not a BAFTA. What is it? Goodnight Mr. Tom won an Olivier as the best play of that year. And I published an article in one of the magazines that I used to write for, and you're gonna see it here. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, give it a like. Tell me if you know anyone or if you have any story on children who speak about past lives. I have also interviewed a Professor Haraldsson, who was a scientist, a researcher, who was a researcher in the theme for many, many years, and in connection with the University of Pennsylvania and the Department of Psychiatry that is now holding over 40,000 cases of children who speak about past lives. So I hope you subscribe to the channel if you like this kind of content. I talk about family therapy. I talk about everything linked to self-development, spirituality, and psychology, and anything in between.